Hi everyone, Jessica Morales joining you now. I have the pleasure of being joined by Steve Pruett, who is the President and CEO of Elevation Resources. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
My pleasure, Jessica.
If we can start off by talking to you about prices. They're up. We know that's a good thing, but the Permian is the hottest patch in the world right now. Why should that make us optimistic? How should it keep us cautious? I guess we got to look at both sides.
Well, on the optimism side, the higher prices support broader development. So when prices collapsed as low as $26 a barrel in February of 2016, the rig count dropped and only Tier 1 acreage was being drilled and acreage was being released. With higher prices into the 60s and at least with the benchmarks into the 70s, Tier 2 acreage can be developed and plays like mine are more viable, and once we're de-risking that asset, others can follow up by manufacturing it. Now on the negative side, we are a victim of our own success. We're developing bottlenecks and getting crude and natural gas out of the Permian Basin, and thus our differentials, in other words, what we get paid relative to the benchmarks, has widened. So while WTI might be at $72 a barrel, we're still getting paid $62 a barrel in the Permian. So we've not, at the wellhead, which is where we sell our crude, enjoyed the full uplift that we've seen in WTI, much less Brent, which has eclipsed the $80 mark on days.
Can you also talk to us about how you've produced horizontal success here since the company was formed in 2013, particularly talking about the Central Basin platform? Can you tell us more about, I guess, the key to success, expand on that?
Yes, well, we went into an old oil field, and there's a saying among geologists, the best place to find oil is where oil has been produced. That's the lowest risk. However, what we brought to this old field, which was developed in the 40s by some of the majors, was modern technology, horizontal drilling coupled with multi-stage hydraulic fracturing. So that, along with our analysis of the geology, that is the stresses on the rock and the best intervals to land in, created the success in the Devonian reservoir, which was a conventional reservoir developed as far back as the 40s on a vertical sense. And then while we were doing that, we examined the other rocks in the stratigraphic column and noted the Barnett was oil-bearing, and taking a key from the Scoop Stack and the Barnett development in the Fort Worth Basin. It was an experiment worth trying. There was a lot of oil there, and the question is, would horizontal drilling, multi-stage sand fracs with slick water extract that oil, and with proper landing zone in the brittle rock proved that it was commercially attractive, and from that we've got a new play. So it was the willingness to use the data that was available and having a private equity sponsor that was willing to take the risk with us that enabled us to test these ideas and turn them into commercial discoveries.
And you mentioned technology and data, of course, just then. Can you talk to us a little bit about, the advancement in technology, how Elevation really, you are all able to use the technology and the data and to become successful?
Well, part of it's our processes, horizontal drilling, hydraulic fracturing, those are processes. But then the specifics of how we drilled through this abrasive chert or this abrasive Barnett is a matter of iterating on different bit technologies. For example, we discovered a bit used in Alaska to apply to drilling our chert reservoirs that were chewing up bits like chewing gum. I mean, we went through 30 bits on our first well, and by our fifth well, we had 5 bits to drill 18,000 feet. So it's iterating, it's collaborating with people in other basins to understand what they did to solve their problems, and then trying those techniques out in our field. And our field is unique to others, although some of the principles around fracking laminated systems have been proven in the Wolfcamp and in the Scoop Stack play in Oklahoma. So it's borrowing technology that other people have applied in similar circumstances. But you have to understand the rocks first before you start grabbing other ideas rather than just randomly testing harebrained ideas. You have to have some basis for it, and the rocks are generally that common basis.
And you mentioned, of course, horizontal drilling. Can we talk a little bit more about the techniques really and maybe how that's changed to make operating, at $50, $60 oil more efficient? And is there any thoughts about how low, I guess, it would be and still be able to be successful in that?
Well, people talk about break-even margins, and there's a couple of different ways to look at them. One is lifting cost break-even, and our lifting costs are, say, $6 a barrel. So we can continue to produce oil, but more importantly, for someone who's drilling and expending capital, we need a return on capital margin, and that number has typically been thrown around as $20 to $40 a barrel. But let's make no mistake, our rate of return is highly sensitive to oil price. So at the current strip, our rates of return are over 100%. But when oil was, in the 40s, our rates of return were 30%, which wasn't as attractive. And that's just for the well. And when you start layering in all the infrastructure costs for water supply, water disposal, gas gathering, oil gathering, all of that matters. And then production facilities, such that, at $40 a barrel, it's really not attractive to invest money. And we were in that awkward zone in the 40 to 50 range where costs were rising back to boom time levels of $100 a barrel. So this move from 50 to 60s is really helpful because that's generally all flowing to the bottom line now in return on capital to our investors. And it allows us to make the infrastructure investments that we need to keep producing, keep fracking, and to keep expanding our base of operations.
Can we talk about infrastructure as well? Do you see any issues or anything that you all are carefully watching for with infrastructure in the area?
Well, there's two ways to think about infrastructure. One's macro, and that is pipeline takeaway capacity to the Gulf Coast, which is primarily where our product is flowing, not so much to Cushing anymore. And along with that, gas takeaway, NGL takeaway, because our gas is produced wet, but it's processed and then separated. So the NGLs have to get to the Gulf Coast where they're consumed, and the residue gas has to get somewhere all over the country, or to Mexico, which is an evolving market. So with our success of producing over 3 million barrels a day in the Permian and almost 10 BCF a day of gas, there are expected strains on takeaway. Fortunately, we've not experienced that yet. Given that we're on the Central Basin platform in the middle of all the pipeline infrastructure, we're advantaged relative to, say, the western southern Delaware, which there's less infrastructure. Ask Apache about that. Then the second one is the micro infrastructure in our field, and that includes gas gathering, gas lift systems, water disposal, water supply, and then ultimately oil gathering and oil takeaway. And that's a significant investment. As we turn from delineating this discovery of drilling and understanding the limits of the reservoir, which we found none thus far, when we go back in and manufacture an infill drill or pad drill, then we can scale up our infrastructure, particularly related to water, because we'll be consuming more water as we expand, shorten the number of days drilling, and expand the number of wells fracked at one time. Likewise, we'll need to treat produced water and recycle that. So as we get larger, we'll produce more oil, for example, and then the trucks won't be able to keep up with it. So we need pipeline connections, LACT units, and direct connections to pipelines, so we don't have trucks running in and out of our field at all hours of the day and night gathering our crude. So those are all, the micro are also elements or result of our success in scaling up the project. Means we need more water, we need more trucks hauling oil, but we really need pipelines to take the oil away, and we're going to need more gas processing capacity in the area, and that's been a strain as well on our gas gatherers and purchasers.
Things to look at. Can you talk to us about, really what you're seeing as excitement maybe also, on the other end, I guess, of course we talk about the challenges, but maybe the Permian Basin, and no doubt you've had success in the area. What do you and your company look forward to in the future?
Well, we look forward to turning from delineating this exciting discovery into manufacturing, seeing our costs come down and our repeatability on the number of days of drilling, and just getting more to a rhythm will be positive. And then ultimately, because we're backed by institutions primarily on the East and West Coast, ultimately it's returning their investment and going on and doing it again. Perhaps I'll end up in the public arena in some way, shape, or form. There are some positives of being public, but we've been fortunate to have a private equity sponsor in Pine Brook Road Partners that was willing to bet on us and take risk in order to develop this exciting discovery.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and thank you for your time.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine.
You're very welcome. And for Heart Energy, I'm Jessica Morales.
To stay up to date on the most recent Heart Energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.